What's up, grinders? Welcome back to the channel. So today I want to talk about a fundamental misunderstanding I've seen happening a lot within the comments section. So I see a lot of comments come to my channel because obviously I am trialing out the ALG automatic language growth method, where people are like, hey, Evildea, I studied Spanish for 3-4 years at school, okay? Passed all the tests. I didn't understand the language. I was unable to produce the language. It was a complete mystery to me. And then I did 400-500 hours of whatever immersion. And now I can watch native level content. Now I'm able to produce the language without any problems. So clearly I should have just done immersion from the get-go. All that time at school was a complete waste of my time. When I think this is a fundamental misunderstanding of what's been going on behind the scenes in your lazy ass brain, or your lame ass brain, as I've put up here, okay? So I want to explain what's happened, okay? So to do this, we're going to need a sentence. Now, the sentence I'm going to use is just a random Esperanto sentence. Mi manjas pomoy. Now, we're going to pretend you are a student, brand new to learning the language. You don't know anything about this language, okay? So we're just going to learn this one language and the structure of it and how it works, okay? So the first time you learn the sentence, you learn each individual component, okay? Now, this is if we're talking about that scenario of you learned at school, unable to use the language, do lots of immersion, suddenly now you've made massive progress that was absolutely batshit insane compared to before. And why you should not be just turning around and telling everyone that immersion is the solution unless they have the same background as you. So you've learned that the word me means I, okay? So this is you wearing glasses. You're a nerd, you like languages, so you wear glasses, okay? You've learned that munj, so the first part here, this means to eat. So I guess we need a little picture. This is you're a sea monster, okay? I don't know why, but you are. And then you've learned us just means present tense, okay? So it's the current present tense. You've learned pomo means apple, so I guess we need an apple. And you've learned oi is plural, so we need multiple apples. And en is the accusative, which means that this is the object of that sentence. Now, prior to starting your immersion, okay, you would be like this. You'd be like, okay, so it's me is for the pronoun I. Okay, cool. Now I want to say eat. So what is the verb for that? It's manji, but I need a present tense, so it's manjas. Me manjas. Now I'm trying to say apples. So what is apple? Apple is pomo, a plural out of y, so it's pomoy, but it needs to be the object of the verb, so it's pomoin. Me manjas pomoin. Boom, got the sentence. But that was not automated. That was not fluent. That was absolutely atrocious. That was you translating in your head. Why the hell can't you just say mi manjas pomoy? Why did you have to go through all those steps, okay? And why suddenly after 500 hours do you have people reporting that the language just flows out, okay, when talking about someone who learnt at school, okay? This is why. Let me explain it to you. You learnt these words and you've created this weak connection between them. Maybe you studied them at school, in a book, whatnot, an app, doesn't matter, but you've got a weak connection. You have a theoretical understanding that me goes with manjas goes with pomoin, okay? You know this if you work through the rules. But the connection in your brain is super weak. And in fact, the longer you leave that connection weak, the more it starts to break up over time because your brain's smart. It's like you don't need this stuff. And if you don't practice it, it's going to fade away and then it's going to become worse and worse, okay? But let's say you're practicing it at school. So you hit it once or twice, a week or whatever. You're like, yeah, there's that connection once or twice a week, and then you don't use it, it starts to break down again, okay? So you've got this constant process of you use it just a tiny, such a small amount that you can maintain an understanding if you work through it, but not enough to be able to utilize it, hear it, or produce it, okay? So this is where immersion comes in and helps a massive amount. When you do immersion, the first time you hear this sentence or the components of this sentence, you create that little line again, okay? But immersion generally is not just 5 seconds of practice for that one sentence, which is what you would do in a school book, okay? It may be 30 minutes, an hour, 2, 5 hours, where maybe you're watching a series and they're talking about apples a lot. Maybe it's, they're picking apples and they randomly mention mi manjas pomoin or some variant of that construction over and over, okay? So you're suddenly now smashing these connections between it with your brain. Now, the connections are not going to be enough at first that you're even going to be able to recognize that you're hearing this. They may say mi manjas pomoin 10 times And you're not even going to hear it. You might hear the me part because this is a pronoun and you practice that pronoun a ton at school. You might hear that part, but you're not going to hear this part right here, okay? Or this part right here. It's just, you just cannot hear it. But the more you hear it in context, okay, the more these connections start to build up. You're not even aware this is happening. This is your brain making those connections going, okay, and it's not necessarily happening right then in that very moment, but it is building those connections. It may happen even while you're asleep, okay, but the connections are building up. Eventually, those connections thicken up to the point where, boom, you're able to hear the word munjas. Now, you might actually miss the word I, and you might miss the word here, but when you hear that sentence, you're like, did they mention something about eating? I think they did. Interesting. Okay. So you keep immersing. Now, as you keep immersing, what happens is these lines start to really thicken up for this sentence that you've heard, so many times. Okay. They're really starting to thicken up now. And via this thickening up, and you notice I'm not making these lines perfect. There's a reason for that. Okay. Because the word me in your brain is not just one sound. It might be me, 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 me. Like there's thousands of different ways to say this sound depending on the accent. And you're hearing all these crossed over variations of it suddenly now, okay? And all those crossed over variations are linking. It's not just one specific sound, okay? Now, as these lines thicken up, you now hear me munjas pomoin, but it takes a second for your brain to process that, and you're actually kind of hearing it in a shadow. It's after the sentence has been said. So you'll hear the sentence, and then a second later you'll be like, oh, they said me munjas pomoin, but the sentence has moved on. Okay, and you're like, damn it, why didn't I not hear? Why is it almost like delayed? Because you still have not thickened it up enough, okay? Now, after you've done this, let's say 100 times or whatever, okay, these lines, they're thick, they're juicy, they've got some beef to them. So as soon as you hear me, your brain instantly goes to the understanding of self, the pronoun. And then it hears munjas, it goes to all those times it's heard that, okay, that word. All the mental images that have happened and that connected with that original word that you studied, and the same with apples, and then you instantly understand it in the moment. And the same thing kind of happens with speech, okay? You may practice me, munjas, pomoin, and it doesn't stick. It's hard to say, but you say that once, you say that twice, you say that with some slight variation. You hear that many, many times. You keep saying it over and over and over, and eventually you build up those connections in your brain to the point where one day it just comes out, me munjas pomoin. The full grammar, everything without thinking about it, okay? Now, this is not some magic that just randomly started after you were studying at school. You started with a scaffolding. Down deep under all this is the word me, is the word munjas, and is the word pomo, pomoin, all these random grammatical variations of it, okay? So what you've done is you've scaffolded. But unfortunately, what school fails to teach, at least when I was going through the school, is that this is not the end game. You can't just learn the words and then that's it. You need to practice them over and over, and you need to hear them over and over. So realistically, what you should be doing is learning the words, okay, and then absolutely smashing yourself with a lot of immersion based around those words. Which is why on my channel I'll talk about things like sentence mining from specific type of content that you enjoy. Okay, so if like this is your content right here, let's just say this is what you love, horror, games. Sentence mine from that. Find words when you're watching a horror game that keep popping up over and over, or even pick words that, maybe just watch one video. Pick as many words as you can from that, add them into maybe your Anki, or at least study them. Like just study them, practice them. You don't even need Anki, okay? Just practice them in some fashion or another. Then keep watching the same type of content over and over. Make sure it's content that you enjoy, different types of videos, and then just try randomly shadow as you hear these things, and they become easier for you to shadow, because there'll be certain sentences that start to fall together easier. Just try to say them, okay? Because by doing that initial study, it's not enough by itself, but once you hear it hundreds, thousands of times via the content, it hooks into what you've learned. You've created a basic scaffolding, okay? So I just wanted to talk about that, and also kind of clear up on that misconception about, specifically around people who are like, don't do traditional study. It's a waste of time. Just do immersion. No, the two go hand in hand, okay? Now, if you just focus on just traditional study, you will fail. If you just focus on immersion, eventually you'll get there, but it's going to take you for fucking ever. Do a bit of both. How you get those words into your brain, okay? Could be writing them, could be via an app, it could be like even technically, yes, immersion, although it's probably the slowest way to get those words into your brain. Just pick a bunch of ways to get those words into your brain. Now, eventually what will happen is you'll get enough words into your brain that you will not need to manually go study them anymore. You'll just start picking up all of them in context. But this part right here, this initial scaffolding, there seems to be a real misunderstanding about all those years of school study that you did and why that has been of great value, but you've never utilized it, okay? And it's why when I study languages right now, I will spend a good amount of time at the beginning learning a bunch of words and then doing immersion straight up. Because I'm getting the words in my brain and now I'm just hitting them over and over and over. Anyway, I think I've cleared that up for a lot of people and how your lame ass brain up here works. If you've got any questions, let me know down in the comment section. That is pretty much it. I'll see you all in the next video. By the way, guys, this is not me shitting on your preferred method. This is me explaining how the brain works and why in this specific case, this was not a waste of your time. Okay? Murder you all in the next video.